Welcome to the next session, Reimagining History Through Spatial Intelligence. We start with a slight delay, so with no further ado, Joe Gabriel from Niantic is going to introduce the panel. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Axel. Thanks for everyone being here. This is day 2 of United XR. It's my first time actually to Brussels, and so I just feel really grateful for being here. Real quick before we jump in, there's a lot of panels and talks and everything happening today. Thanks for taking time to be with us for the next 20, 25 minutes. It's going to be a nice kind of free form, more of like a fireside discussion and panel. But I also want to take a moment to say thank you to developers, either in the room or devs that are back home that are running our products that allow us to take time to be here for events like this. I feel really fortunate to be able to do that. So thank you devs that are out there or in the room. Appreciate you guys. Okay, so introducing our panelists today. So I'm really grateful to have Amy and Will in, and they're actually going to take a moment to kind of introduce themselves before we get into the projects that we're going to be talking about today. So Amy, say hello and tell us about yourself. What are you doing? Tell us about your team. Yeah.
Hello. Hi everyone, my name is Amy Jenkins. So I've been at Ubisoft for quite a while now, nearly 20 years. Ubisoft is a video game publisher, so that means that we have creative teams across the world that have the ideas, make the games, and then we also distribute and market them. We don't make hardware, just the digital content. For the last 5 years, I have been managing a team that goes beyond gaming. So it's quite unusual, perhaps not what you might expect from a video game publisher. In fact, I believe that we're the only publisher that has a dedicated team to doing things that aren't related to gaming. And quite organically, really, that's converged towards working with cultural institutions and venues, and again, organically on XR. We also do a lot of educational products, and actually I would talk about the scale between entertainment and education, like many of you, I'm sure, in this room. But basically, in a nutshell, we go into our games, which have been created over many years by hundreds of people and cost millions, if not hundreds of millions of euros to make. They're made with such care to make them feel credible and realistic, because gamers spend hundreds of hours in them, and they need to feel authentic. To make them authentic, we do research. So whether it's a fantasy game, something that's happening in a setting today, or in a historical setting, we do loads of research, and we actually have historians who are employed by Ubisoft, but also linguists and anthropologists and all sorts of can't say that in English. Sorry, I work in France. Sometimes I lose my English words. But geologists, all sorts of different experts. So once we have these worlds, then we can pretty much repurpose them to do anything. And that's sort of the context of why I'm here and how we were able to work on the projects that we're going to talk about in this panel, taking the digital worlds in the games and using them to do other stuff.
When you first started at Ubisoft, were you already tasked with working on these kind of extra projects, or?
They didn't exist. Actually, 20 years ago, I mean, gaming, I'm sure many of you have followed it, has completely revolutionized. It was pixelized and the consoles were not the same at all. There was no such thing as partnerships with mass market brands. I remember going to Coca-Cola and asking them to work with us on the game, and they were like, video games, ooh, not sure. Absolutely not. It was, well, I worked in a different area at Ubisoft. I've always been between business and marketing. But partnerships at that time were more with Intel, NVIDIA, AMD components to show off the features of different types of hardware, and so that the games ran better.
That makes sense. Thanks for being here. That's really cool. And how long at Ubisoft this year?
Nearly 20, yeah.
Nearly 20. Man,
wow.
Seeing kind of the evolution of games, education history, and how it's been approached both on consoles, PC, but now walkabout spaces, that's pretty special. Will.
Hey folks.
Tell us about yourself.
I'm 5'10" and have dark hair. I'm Will. I'm creative director at a company called Sugar Creative. We're a creative tech agency based out of the UK doing projects worldwide. I sit over the top of the creative arm, working with amazing people like Joe and like Amy, to try and make things that are unusual, that solve problems. We're sector agnostic, so we end up working with everything from entertainment to medtech to play-based learning.
Something that's cool about Will that I appreciate has nothing to do with XR at all, and it's that your background formerly trained as a geneticist, right?
Yeah, molecular genetics for my sins, and
Right.
then neurogenetics and behavioral psychology and comms theory from that.
Okay, I love that. I work with technologists and developers day to day. Just out of curiosity, like, who here kind of like has what you would consider kind of an outside background, outside directly of technology, journalism, or a historian, or a writer,
There's
or
gotta
a
be some
museum
scientists in
curator,
the room.
or something like that, right? Thank you for being here. I love that, and especially that like the community, you know, I think it's important to feel like everyone has a place, but also whatever skill, talent, and passion that you're kind of coming trained with, or that you want to kind of be a professional at, there is a space for you to express that, you know, within augmented virtual reality, and that's important. So I don't know if you got any genetics, projects coming up, but it
Not a
translates.
lot, but we have, well, that intersectionality thing is what's led us to do culture and history, because it is where you start to find interesting points of crossing over.
Lovely. And kind of what brought this Jolly Band together today is a new project, which was announced early last week and then was shared earlier today in a follow-up announcement, and then in a keynote talk from Thomas Gawecki from Niantic Spatial. So real quick, this is Echoes of Revolution.
Echoes of Revolution in Echo.
All right, so Echo. Echoes, thank you, Will. Echoes of Revolution, like top line, what is it? And we're not showing video because it's still in production, but like tell us about, you know, high level, what do we got here?
It is a city-scale immersive experience. It's set in two cities, one in Boston and one in New York, and it lets you step back into the American Revolution. So 250 years ago, into the founding of America. And as you can probably tell from the with Assassin's Creed and Giant Crest, it is set using Assassin's Creed assets and sat inside the Assassin's Creed world.
So I guess this is an example when I said
Perfect
you
example.
take the world, we have the assets, you turn it into something else. The visuals in the AR app on your mobile phone are from the game. Everything else comes from other sources, so historians have helped us with the text. We've sourced archived images and all sorts of
Archive
historical
images,
research.
Yes, so much research. And the aim being that when you walk down a street, it's turned into a canvas, so you can then step back into that moment of history. So you can see on screen part of the docks in Boston, where you're throwing tea into the harbour. That world is the world that was created for AC3. And then utilized, repurposed, and then combined with a whole bunch of additional historical content.
Obviously, in 2026, there's the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Treaty of Independence, so there's going to be lots of celebrations in the US. We're expecting tourist numbers to soar in all cities, but particularly in cities with importance during the revolution. So Boston was a hub for the revolutionaries who were protesting against the English. Sorry that we're both English.
We're not sore about it at all.
Just being polite, that's also English. So there's an existing revolutionary trail in Boston, if any of you have ever been there, that's already walked by, I don't actually have the numbers top of mind, but do you know?
Literal millions.
Literally millions of people who go there and walk around and see those points of interest where history happened. There are tourism offers available. You can go on a guided tour. This is an app that you have on your phone and you can do it autonomously and independently, but really being immersed into the past. When you go on a guided tour with someone dressed up as a revolutionary, you're not really imagining what it looked like at the time.
And you're not taking part. Like, it's great to go and see these places, but I don't want to just go and see that. I want to stand on a battlement. I want to fire some cannons. I want to be part of it, because that's where history becomes engaging. You start to feel a bunch of empathy, because although you're using play, you are essentially achieving this wonderful moment of connection to the past.
So my question here is, how did you two first get connected? Because like we're talking about this today, but I think there's a lot of important beats that kind of led up to this kind of production and opportunity to work together. How did you first get connected?
So I think everyone has a story about COVID. In 2020, I had a really cool project based in the UK. Again, I'm based in France. That was location-based in a city in the UK, and I had a really I thought, cool idea to do something on the streets, walking around the city in AR. And I needed a developer on the ground, and I did not know one. All of my contacts were in other countries. There was no travel. So I cold called different AR agencies, obviously did a lot of research, and Sugar had just delivered prize-winning, nominated Wallace and Gromit experience in AR.
Et cetera, yeah.
And so I literally picked up the phone and called random numbers and talked to Will.
So Will, you get a call.
Any of you in the audience from smaller agencies gets a call that says, "Hi, I'm Amy, I'm from Ubisoft." What's your first instinct? Yes, that's spam and clearly a lie, which is exactly how we treated it. We looked like idiots. But yeah, it turned out to be Ubisoft. It then started the journey of, well, what can we do with a new bunch of VPS-based technologies, new bunch of AR technologies to actually bring city streets to life and the project.
And when was this? When was that first connection?
220?
Yeah, must have been. Like 4
Somewhere
and a bit
around
years ago. Started production.
And I should say, like, we're a big company, but we work with small companies, startups, one-man shows, and large corporations. Like, we're just looking for the right partners in the right place with the right expertise. I'm not trying to market Ubisoft, but just the way we think is go for the people who know what they're doing.
They are genuinely cool. Like, very rarely do you get to work with people and you get to go, no, these guys are ace. Same with Niantic. If you get a chance to work with them, they're fun.
And I think it was 3 years ago at a summertime AWE that we first connected. You came and tracked me down, the personal version of a cold call, you know, and just like, "Hi, I'm Will from Sugar." And then 3 years ago, a lot has happened since then. I feel really fortunate for that connection. So thanks for answering the phone and then also coming and chasing me. Yeah. So kind of leading up to Echoes of Revolution, Ubisoft has a crazy rich history of working on these really dynamic historical projects. My question now is, like, looking at these learning by doing experiences that you've made, applications or in-person expansions of Assassin's Creed, like, what are some of your favorites that we should know about that maybe the audience, you know, might not have seen?
So once the content exists, we can repurpose it, right? So if we look at the different historical settings that Assassin's Creed has already visited in the past, I think there are 14 main games, but there have been many other games made. Each time at a pivotal point in history, and with all of this research that goes into making it authentic. Not 100% accurate, because it is a game and we make them for fun, but accurate enough for them to be used by museums and cultural institutions. Favorites, VR experience in Alexandria, where you arrive in the port. It's Cleopatra's Alexandria. The lighthouse is there. You go up it, you light it. You go down the Canopic Way, you see the Library of Alexandria, and you end up in Alexander the Great's tomb. Just because I love that part of history personally, and just being immersed in it, like all of the experiences in Shed 1, is just so cool, I think, being able to actually be in history. Second one I would pick is, video is actually a really powerful tool. We have tools that allow you to go into the game engines and just film. So we work with a lot of documentary production companies. They're like little kids. They're like, oh my God, I can have any angle, I can zoom, I can have a drone view, I can go first person, I can change the weather, I can change the light and the time of day, and we make the film basically. So you take out the characters, forget any assassins you might be imagining, take out the main character, you've just got the game environment, so in this case Alexandria, and you can just walk around and make films. So we also made a film of Alexandria, which is currently in the World Arab Institute in the exhibition that's running right now about Cleopatra. It's in the first room, it sets the scene, you go in, you know, in an exhibition generally it starts with, here's the map, here's the historical context. In this case, we also have a video so that people really understand what we're talking about and can visualize and project. So films, actually, I find quite a powerful tool in some contexts. And the other example I would give is we've actually co-created a whole exhibition, again with the Arab World Institute, about Baghdad. in the 9th century. So Assassin's Creed Mirage was set in Baghdad in the 9th century. We recreated the Round City. For anyone who likes history, Baghdad was completely destroyed in the 12th century, and there's very little information that was written down at that time other than travelers and a few pictures. So nobody really knows what life was like in the 9th century in Baghdad. There's certainly no other visual representation of it. This museum had these exquisitely rare items in their archives, which they never really got out because how could they use them? And also they're quite small and hard to look at. So what we did was we used the Baghdad we created for the game, corroborated by experts. Does this look credible? Could the mosque have looked like that? Are the distances correct? Yes, this is a credible representation of Baghdad. And then we used all of the graphics in an exhibition. So it's a exhibition 2.0. It has these amazing objects, but you get what they are because there are videos next to them. We have videos showing how you died in the 9th century, D-Y-E-D, died with colours. There are videos...
Less stabbing. Never do the stabbing.
There are videos showing the actual locations, so what each monument looked like. And it just gives body to this exhibition.
Where is the exhibition?
So right now it's in a town in the north of France, it's touring. And I'm not allowed to say where it's going next, but it's South America. This is going to be touring. It's been a massive success. The number of visitors went up by 20% of the Arab World Institute in Paris. And they've gone up by 50% in the museum in the north of France in a town called Tourcoing, which is smaller, so it's understandable that when the percentage increase was bigger, but that's huge, 50% increase in visitors. And the reason is their usual public, their usual audience engages with it, but they're also bringing in those audiences that don't generally go to museums. The school groups were fully booked before the exhibition started. And those kids read every single word of the interpretation panels and came out experts on medieval Baghdad. So I think that's probably one of my favorites, because actually for us it's quite simple. We made videos, we made images, we repurposed assets from the games. I wouldn't really call it, strictly speaking, XR, but it's hugely immersive. Yeah.
And quick plug for Medieval Baghdad on the App Store, released in September, built by...
Did you, by any chance, then have an app that goes with it to assist in the learning through play?
So at the end of the exhibition, there's a, would you like to know more about Medieval Baghdad? And we made an app with Sugar. Well, Sugar made the app for us, using the assets from the game. It's a 100% educational experience, and it's 100% free. And the idea is we just give access to these assets, again, this world that we made, and we repurpose them to use in a fun way to learn.
Those assets, the other thing that Amy didn't mention there is that alongside those game assets, there are also then 3D digitized assets from the collections. So not only do you then have a recreated world with a real history, you then have real objects and game objects, allowing you to move through the imagined recreated into the real, just driving so much engagement, which is awesome to see.
All right. This is a cool collection of images really quickly from the one in Winchester. We're calling it 878. This is based on Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I had a chance to go visit this one in person. This is important context, I think, to understand kind of what's happening in Boston and New York as well. It was useful for me. And I think anyone that's interested in doing like location-based entertainment or like immersive entertainment, I have just found it so invaluable to actually take time to like be in a place in person to experience like that human element. How does the city or the steps like feel, you know, as you're moving through that space? Will, walk me through really quickly kind of what the setup is like, starting from top left.
So the basic premise was that you'd start inside an immersive but fundamentally traditional museum space, which then started to tell a story and then broke out of that museum and then used the city as the secondary part. And then inside that city, transforming elements of the location into what they would have been on the eve of the Vikings invading. So you can defend the West Gate, man a cargo ship, speak with King Alfred as he poses riddles to you in a bit of downtime, that sort of thing. Engage with the history and take you on the remnants of the story back to the museum space.
I spent entirely way too much time chucking barrels, by the way, into the water. This was us after the trip. I think it's like probably 45 minutes. I mean, the inside experience I think was like 45 minutes, and then exterior there was around a dozen locations, maybe another 45 from there. Right?
Yeah, about that. It's one of the key learnings that 45 minutes is good, but it can definitely go longer. I know I'm going to preempt a question, almost like we planned this, about some learnings. That is definitely one of them. If you want to offer something.
Yeah, what we learn, Will, and also for Amy too. Like, looking at 878, and then planning for Boston and New York. What are things that we wanted to kind of toss out because we learned, the lessons, or things that we wanted to keep? What were the takeaways? Amy, or Will?
So 878 had a physical location, a museum, and then you walked on the streets of the city to do the AR part on your phone. In the case of Boston and New York, there's no exhibition. You can do it autonomously on your own, just on your phone. Certainly, I think a key point is awareness, making people aware that the app actually exists because it's on the app stores. So apart from being friends with the app stores and having them push it, you need to do advertising, basically communication, and also the importance of having allies on the ground. So we had this physical location in the UK for 878, but just the one. I think one of the learnings from that experience was to go on sites, and Will can talk more to this, in both Boston and New York, meet the local actors, the physical locations, the tourist office, and get visibility for it. This project, we are convinced, is going to be a massive success, but will only be a success if people know it exists. There are other apps that exist to walk around the Revolutionary Trail, so how do you know which one to pick?
And how do you differentiate between what people expect with something that's intrinsically new? They're not used to being able to step into immersive spaces in this way, so you've got to not only tell them it exists, but tell them why you're excited about it. And there is no substitute for advertising on the ground. So in New York, one of the key partners there, the Gotham Center for New York History, who are also co-funding it, they've secured 30 shop fronts in the entire area, so that wherever you're walking down the street, you're presented with, this is what happened here, why don't you step into the past? Let me show you how.
Something interesting about Boston and the New York locations is kind of underneath the hood is the Niantic Spatial visual positioning system. This kind of allows for a more accurate precision, of the augmented content overlaid on top of the physical space. Last question for Will, and we just have a few more minutes here, is what has VPS brought to the Boston and New York locations versus, say, generic GPS and SLAM?
You very delicately understate the value of VPS there it's slightly improving access, slightly improving accuracy. It is an absolute insane game changer. All of a sudden, you don't have a put something down manual placement step that breaks immersion, that creates a barrier. It is just look round, it locks on, and then from a creator point of view, you're able to just locate any content to that place in the real world. So for us, the difference is night and day. It's the fact that you can easily move into the space as a player, and the fact that it locks it incredibly accurately, incredibly stably.
Am I allowed to add something on here?
Please do, yeah.
This is the way of saying it for someone non-technical. In 878, you had to get your phone, line it up with the frame in the right place. If you turned around to talk to someone and went back again, it had gone. You tried to start again, you had to start the scene again. Oh, it was so fiddly. With this time, you get there, it's there. You don't have to do anything. It just starts.
Yeah.
It's totally accessible.
And the nice part is that when it works, you just don't even notice that it's working. And that's kind of the beautiful point of the technology. Last question as we wrap up, Amy and Will. If you could have unlimited budget and choose at your own time period and location, for an immersive historical experience, when and where would that be?
That's a really tough one. I would probably go back to the Industrial Revolution. Victorian England, I'm English, sorry, I'm coming back to my roots. I would probably do something in London, because I think that's a really fascinating period when a lot of things changed for every layer of the population. And you?
I love the fact that you've gone for that point of change. Mine would be something slightly different. Either the Romans from the point of view of the Celts, that moment of change, or as my partner has made me relocate to Wales, something around King Arthur, something that's castles, hybridized space of like what was myth, what wasn't.
We'll have a chat with our dev teams.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. Big round of applause for Will and Amy. Thank you so much.
Thanks, folks.
Please come find us afterwards. We'd love to talk some more, hear about your projects, what you have up to, and thanks for hosting us, Axel.